Hello, and welcome. Seems like our dimension has pulled a ditch mode. Sorry, my brain's been a little bit scrambled. You ever just hit my head against the trees a little bit one too many times? But somehow I did manage to simulate the forest properly. Somehow I also managed to simulate something completely different. But it seems as though that there is some greater magical presence around here that I can't exactly put my finger on. And how I've mostly been messing around with a lot of sciencey stuff, and yet, lo and behold, most of the people that we've interviewed had a hand in magic some way or another. Well, I guess it was only a matter of time before we just started throwing science away and just let things be what they should be. A smorgasbord of who knows what. But coming from this gentle forest from parts unknown, we do have a lovely little witch that's been eager to kind of speak with us for a little bit of time. And it's about time that we take this opportunity to know more. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce y'all to Madam Misu, or Misu the Mushroom Witch. Just give me a moment. I will now unlock safeties, and we will begin. Hello?
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm well, traveler. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just, I have to say that going through this forest was quite of a doozy, just a little bit.
Well, if you're going to find a mushroom witch, I can't have you making it easy for you now, can I?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of secret bases and all these other things. Yeah.
I mean, why can't all those futuristic bases have all the fun? All the secret warps or the trapdoors or anything like that? Why not a winding path in the forest? Keep people on their toes.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, that's the most natural security measure, along with the possibilities of something living in the forest as well. Maybe like, I don't know, what kind of magic creatures kind of make sense in this situation? Maybe like giant treants or something wolfy.
Hmm. Well, I have heard of treants, but unfortunately, I don't have any in my forest. It would make things definitely more interesting. Instead, I just have a frog that plays video games and likes to eat a lot. So, sorry, it can be a little bit more interesting.
I guess it's more interesting with a talking, or can the frog actually talk?
Oh, yes, they're a bit of a sass, but yes, they talk a lot. They have a lot to say. They even screech. In fact, let me show you.
Okay.
Frog, screech!
I guess.
That's the sass coming out.
Oh, I see. Well, frog buddy over here, I hope they're not going to be too much of a sassy little partner.
Oh, no, absolutely not. They can be quite charming.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they can be quite charming.
Off to a good start at this point.
Okay.
So, with our viewers, I guess we can start with the introduction. So, how about you introduce yourself?
Well, hello there, travelers. I am the Mushroom Witch Misu, and I live in my mushroom-shaped cabin in the forest. I help travelers who are lost their way in the forest to find their way back again. But before I do so, I do my best to entertain them so they feel a little bit better about their predicament. I have a frog apprentice named Wa, who resides on my head and also wears a mushroom cap. Uh, Despite the fact that they look absolutely adorable, as I mentioned previously, they are quite sassy, enjoy sweets, and will pretty much show dominance to any sort of game that I try to play. But they're cute, so they can get away with it.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be a running thing with a lot of cute things. They can be a menace to society, but always just get away with it because it can just be pet and cared for and taken care of like a baby goose.
Yeah. No, I mean it's just like nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition as that old comic sort of show mentions. Nobody expects an adorable frog who is very sassy and for some reason likes to say Ohio memes. I don't know why. They seem to be on the internet a lot. They say it's the newest thing that's out there. I don't think I quite understand.
Wait. Hold on. You actually have internet reception over in the forest?
Of course I do. How else am I going to connect with others that are out there? Now, granted, I am not as much of an internet expert as the Frog Apprentice is, but I know a few things. I mean, how else am I going to connect with others? In fact, how else am I going to use GPS when there are certain thing or areas or the forest or paths that I need to take my travelers to that I'm not always aware of? Yes, I am a witch, but I don't know everything.
You know, for a moment, you seem to have a very high tech explanation for a lot of magical things.
There's magic in everything, though. It's not just about putting herbs together in a cauldron or, yes, I know how to make a brilliant cup of tea that has both healing and calming properties. But I try to learn a new thing or two about magic outside the usual bounds of witchcraft. I'm not very good at it, but I do try to, you know, learn my best. And I think it's because of Frog Apprentice, because, they're much younger and they're of a different generation. And so they see and do things a bit differently. So I'm, trying to keep up with it. I don't think I'm doing very well, though, but I'm doing my best.
That's a college try, at least.
Yes.
Okay. So, we are off to a good start with this one, aren't we?
Well, I hope so. I thought I'd do my best when it came to doing this interview with you. Granted, I haven't done very many of these, but I, and I admit I'm just a little bit shy when it comes to talking about all of my witchly abilities or just my everyday life. But, you took the time to reach out to me, and I'm always interested in talking to new people and experiencing or getting ideas of their experiences. So I really hope I'm doing right by you today.
You're certainly on the right path.
Ah, thank you.
Still on the right path, and above all else, I hope I'm on the right path on providing a nice little venue for everybody to kind of express their stories as much as they can.
Oh,
It's
yes.
very important that those within both YouTube, both within the VTuber dimension and the human dimension, at least understand that there's importance behind every story that comes around.
Absolutely.
And preserving that is of the utmost importance in my mission too.
Oh, absolutely.
That said, there are always going to be some very interesting characters that can come across this particular path of mine.
Well, of course. I mean, from what I've experienced in my cabin, it seems like when they say that people are coming from all walks of life, they're absolutely coming from all walks of life, even paths that I didn't even think existed. I mean, there's all sorts of types of people, aren't there? It's quite interesting and a little bit overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah,
None
very overwhelming.
of my grimoires actually prepared me for this.
And none of my AI has actually been able to process this either as much as it can.
Oh, AI. I believe that means artificial intelligence. Am I correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Oh, wonderful. I'm paying attention to something.
Hmm. I mean, it's never going to be used for anything nefarious. That's one thing I can reassure. In fact, it's important that my AI Ace can provide me with enough information to help me with my mission nonetheless. That said, I'm pretty much the only one that can hear him since he's directly into my head.
Hear him?
Yeah, it's a bit of a complicated story, but I guess that'd be for another time.
Hmm. I sometimes hear my frog apprentice when they whisper into my ear. Unfortunately, when they do it in the middle of the night, they make it seem like it's a ghost. They should be very glad that they're cute. Otherwise, they
Yeah.
might, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I understand. I mean, most witches have a familiar of some sort, and it goes beyond just having an animal sort of familiar, which is what Frog Apprentice is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the connection to magic itself, whether it comes in the form of a voice inside the head, or a feeling, or an intuition. It seems like something similar to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that boils it down pretty nicely.
Hmm,
All right, so now we can start with the line of questions that I have for you.
wonderful.
All
I will
right.
do my best.
All right, all right. So, in becoming a witch, what was the extent of your training?
Well, um, first things first. Everyone discovers that they're a witch, whether they are male, female, or of a different gender identity when they're fairly young. And when they do discover that they have the abilities to become a witch, they go through, I don't want to call it rigorous because you're dealing with children. And if there's anything that I can say for sure is that children don't always want to pay attention to what you're teaching them. So they go through a bit of a exploratory process to figure out what sort of magic or top or sort of like, how do I say this? It's more like there's different types of magic, and you're spending that time trying to figure out which ones you like the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you are, I guess, what humans would call elementary school age, you start your training at specialized schools. But the thing is that because we live in the modern world, it just isn't always feasible to do like, you know, hidden magical type schools everywhere. I mean, it's just you can't really hide anything out there, especially on the internet now, can you? At
No.
least that's what I got the idea of. So we mainly do afternoon or even weekend courses studying things. Um, I discovered when I was very, very young that I liked things of an earthly nature. So I liked working with herbs, but I also liked working in the kitchen, because there's something very magical about bringing ingredients together and making them into something bigger than what each individual ingredient was before, like baking a cake or a pie or something. So I trained myself in herbology and studied things involving being a kitchen witch. Now, kitchen witches are people who infuse magic in baking or cooking or things like that. And I did this because I realized at a very young age that I wanted to give people comfort. I mean, my mother, she wasn't a cat. She didn't have her own cabin in the woods or anything like that. But she was very well versed in the abilities of a kitchen witch and used her ability to give comfort to people who were hungry or who just needed a little pick me up. And that really influenced me. So when it came to studying, that's what those two subjects that I studied. And because I wanted to devote my life into helping others, that's all the subjects that I studied. And when I discovered that there are witches in the woods all over the world who are devoted to helping those who are in need, who have lost their way, who really have wanted to help those that, have lost their way, both figuratively and literally. I just realized that's what I wanted to do with my calling, with my abilities. So that's how I got my mushroom cabin in the woods.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that's it's interesting. It can sometimes be a little bit lonely because I don't always see travelers every day. But just knowing that I have the opportunity to help people and that I can bake whatever I want, whenever I want, is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you did go to a school of witches.
Yes, I did. That was
Ah.
that was an interesting experience because there's and I'm sure this happens at normal schools too, where you always have the people that believe that they're what they've chosen to do is better than what you've chosen to do. So that made for very interesting moments.
Mm, I'm guessing those interesting moments involved a bit of butting of heads and differences in philosophies.
Yes, well, there are certain people I've gone to school with that no longer want my sugar cookies for reasons I shall not get into in this interview here.
Well, I guess I'm gonna miss out on those sugar cookies then.
Oh no, if I gave you sugar cookies, they would be tasty. They would also not have an extra ingredient that may or may not give people a very bad stomach ache.
Hmm. I guess that's the black magic working at that point.
Oh, no, no, nothing like that. It's just a keen awareness of ingredients that can either uplift or make somebody feel quite never black magic though.
Hmm.
Intention, yes. Actual magic, no.
Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't want to make anybody who can bake such bomb ass sugar cookies get on the bad side.
Exactly.
Okay, so hmm, you did mention that there was like some other possible routes as a witch, but was there something that kind of appealed to you before becoming a mushroom witch in general, or was there maybe a
Mm,
different school of thought?
no, I think due to my family's influence, especially my mother, I always had that in in my head to go down that path. But if I had to do it again, I'd probably want to do something more technical. Um, you know, use the infusion of magic with technology, especially when searching things on the internet or just anything that involves the two, as the frog apprentice is interested in. But the only reason I would want to do that is just so that I can know a bit more about technology a bit better, not necessarily because it's something I'm interested in. I
Hmm.
like the things that I've learned, but it's always it's always fun to learn something new.
Yeah. Yeah, and technology and magic is always going to be expanding no matter what, so they could practically go hand in hand.
Exactly. There's always an opportunity to create innovative technology, just as it's always a possibility to create something new and magical. It really does go hand in hand.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Now, I guess also kind of before becoming a full on witch, did you feel like you had any magical powers beforehand? Anything that you probably explored or.
Um, well, when I was it's odd because when I was young, um it's odd because how do I say this? When you're around your parents and you love them very much, you automatically think that they're magical regardless. And I'm sure any human child can say the same thing, or any person who really has adored their mother. You just think they're magical because, case in point, for some reason they seem to be able to find the things that you can't find, even though you swear that you've looked everywhere, and then suddenly they point a finger, and then boom, what you were looking for is right there. I have been a witch for many, 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 many years, and I still don't understand how that works.
Hmm.
um, so, but when it came to me discovering the magic in myself, I think it just was sort of a natural, sort of organic sort of thing. I mean, when it comes to witches like us, we discover magic, something happens. It's just it something that seemed normal didn't happen. Doesn't it suddenly it's a bit different. For me, it was with my mom and I, we started a herb garden, and I loved spending time near it, if only to see when everything would grow. And normally, plants don't really grow very quickly, but suddenly, in my presence, everything was pretty much grown within hours.
Hmm.
So that's when they realized maybe something is up with her. I wish I could tell you, like, I suddenly started floating, or I sneezed and a fireball came out, but it wasn't quite like that with me. It was just a matter of I would go to a park and sit at a tree, and then when it was time to leave with my mother, suddenly there were mushrooms everywhere.
Hmm.
Mushrooms that weren't there before. or yes, or just plants that would suddenly grow whenever I'd walk by. That's when they realize. That's when things would, That's when I realized, oh, okay, maybe maybe there's a bit more to the magic I see in my mom than I ever realized.
Hmm.
Or anytime I made like a something simple like making a cookie or something when I was younger, and just noticing how people would react to it much more. How do I say it? It's more like it's one thing when you eat food, but when it gives you like a feeling or an emotion that's just lasts for a long time. There's a bit more to it. Like
Hmm.
I like I can't even remember. I'm not even sure that I can describe it as words fail me. But definitely the whole suddenly plants are growing when I'm nearby, or mushrooms suddenly appear where they weren't there before. That's how I realized that, I'm not just a normal person, and there's more to my mother's magic than I was letting on as a wee little almost witch.
Hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
so you did have yeah, from an observation standpoint, I guess you actually had a very strong affinity to nature and earth.
Oh,
So,
of course. Yes, I did. Yes. That is why I love living in deep in the forest, because I get to be around the nature that I have loved so much, probably even before I was born. But it's just where I'm meant to be, and I just feel comfortable there. It's just being there makes me very, very happy.
hmm, and I guess if we can kind of refer to some other like documents or anything, maybe somewhere in like tomes or scrolls,
Hmm.
I guess forests do have a much stronger ley line than a lot of other natural areas.
Well, because they've been untouched, it's unfortunate there aren't as many forests out there now, but the ones that have been untouched have been around for a long, long time. So they have a deeper, stronger connection to nature and magic, and just the whole of history, or like just the whole of everything in general. And so it makes sense for me to stay there. Not to mention the rent is just really, really cheap.
I mean, you could practically build the house yourself, so you don't have to worry about much rent other than maybe like a little bit of upkeep here and there.
Exactly.
So that explains the idea for the forest. Was there possibly
Hmm.
another locale that you probably could have chosen that was a bit more suitable for your affinity?
Well, mm, fortunately, I didn't really have a choice as to which one I ended up in. It's one of those things that the higher authority, or the powers that be, when it comes to things related to becoming like a forest witch, or in my case, a mushroom witch. It was something that they decided. But I'd like to think that they were very aware of who I was as a person at that time, which is what factored into their decision. Because it's never a good idea to put a witch in a situation or in a location where they have no affinity to it, because their magic definitely is affected, which is not a good thing to happen, especially when you're devoted to helping others with your magic.
Hmm.
So, so I didn't have a choice in the matter. Um, I think they knew me well enough to know what was the best place for me, and that's why I'm here. And I'm glad that they they realized, oh yeah, yeah, they'll definitely be happier here. So, um, if I did have the choice, I think somehow I would let my instincts draw me to where I am now, because I can't think of really ever being anywhere else.
Hmm. I see. I see.
Hmm.
Hmm. So, when it comes to the forest, how
Hmm.
did you ever meet with your little frog companion?
Well, every witch has a familiar. Um, and once you become a full fledged witch, uh, several things can happen when you get your familiar. Sometimes your familiar just shows up. Sometimes you do a little ritual or you cast a spell in order to summon your familiar. When I moved into my cabin, my not only was my frog apprentice there, they looked at me and they said, "I'm hungry."
That's it.
Yeah, but I mean, I felt the connection between the frog apprentice and I. I mean, after all, they were wearing a mushroom hat like I was, so that told me that this was my familiar. But at the same time, I thought there would be a bit more, ceremony to it, or it would just be a bit, you know. I mean, I wasn't expecting my familiar to come into my life and say, "I'm hungry." And I certainly didn't. I'm not sure what I expected my familiar to be. A hungry frog was not it.
Definitely not. At least it wasn't a hungry hippo.
Sometimes I wonder.
But then again, there might be some witch that does have a hippo for a familiar, so I wouldn't really mess with them either.
Oh, I wouldn't want to mess with those individuals at all.
No. Even baby hippos are still a bit of a vicious type.
Mm,
They do look adorable though.
yes, they do.
As long as they're away from any of us.
Everything looks adorable from a distance.
Yeah, and then when they get closer, that's where we just start contemplating whatever kind of
Yeah.
life went wrong.
Yes. That's when we start rethinking our choices.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess when it comes to the potions that you make, what kinds do you actually make?
I don't make potions exactly. My potions are teas. So I
Mhm.
use certain herbs infused with intentions or thoughts or even an outright spell in order to to give them to an individual to address a certain ailment or just to help them to feel calm. I also infuse my spells in my food too, but it's mainly mostly teas. Um, like just in general, herbs and like dried flowers. They all have a different effect. Or like when they're steeped in tea, they have a different effect on a person. And it just gets cranked. What is that phrase again? Oh yes, that frog apprentice told me. It just gets cranked to 11 when magic gets involved.
Mhm.
So I use that, but it. I'm also very cognizant of the combination of herbs that I use in order to um, get a desired effect. Like for instance, um, using a spell for rest while combining lavender and chamomile with like some other dry flower essences to help someone who needs rest. So if they've been wandering in my forest all day and they're just so exhausted, but sometimes exhaustion can be so overwhelming that you can't sleep. Uh, I will give them that spell infused tea in order to help them rest before I guide them back out of the forest. Or, just rose hips and lemon and things along those lines in order to encourage someone to gain energy or to feel better or just, yeah. My teas are my potions, to be quite frank.
Mhm.
Yes.
Lord knows I need. Lord knows I know. I guess the rest one's definitely gonna be helpful in fixing my sleep schedule, and the energy one's definitely gonna be helpful in life in general. So
Hmm.
I know who to hit up at this point.
Absolutely.
That said, did you ever plan on like selling those kind of tea concoctions by any chance?
I've thought about it. Frog Apprentice has mentioned it uh, a few times. But I think that's due to their desire for me to buy more video games for them.
Mm,
uh, yes, I live a comfortable life as a mushroom witch, but I don't really think about funds or money the same way that Frog Apprentice does. Um, but I might consider it. But at the same time, the people I help are the ones I'm more concerned with. So, and it does take a lot of time to gather herbs and prepare them to make teas and everything. If it were like just a person every now and again, I might consider it, but I also have to think about my mission. So, and those lost travelers are the ones that benefit most from my magic. So I'm more concerned about them.
Mm-hmm. And what about the baked goods they usually make? Do they use the same kind of ingredients as your tea does, or do you have like a different set? How do you do it?
Oh, uh, well, believe it or not, even though I live in the forest, I do have ways of going out to places, the so-called modern world, to get the ingredients that I need to bake. So I do that. Um, but I also have a special grimoire
Hmm.
in terms of baking things, because like my teas, my baked goods, depending on the purpose that they are made for, are also infused with magic. So the interesting thing about kitchen witchery is that we use the basic ingredients. It's just the spells that give it magic, not necessarily the ingredients themselves. Although some would argue that pure vanilla makes anything that you put it in magical.
Hmm.
um, but so I, when it comes to making something, like if I'm making cookies, I'll just use the recipe. But then as I add every ingredient. I chant a spell or an incantation with everyone so that it's the magic is all put in there and baked in. And it's once it's all ready, the people who eat it, well, if it's for a purpose, like for instance, the infamous sugar cookies I told you about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
um, so that when the person eats it, it's not they're eating more than just the sugar cookies. They're also eating the incantation that's inside of it. Whether it's a good incantation or a bad incantation, at the end of the day, I'm the only one who truly knows.
Hmm. And do
But
you?
usually for me, it's mostly good ones. I haven't done the sugar cookie thing since witch school.
Mm-hmm. And do you have like an example of like an incantation that you can like tell us?
Um, Goodness gracious. Just so it could be something as simple of uh made with love I send to thee, so bring it forth, so mote it be. Like if I'm just giving you something to lift your spirits, I would say something like that. Like I send you goodness and kindness to thee, so wrap my hand, so mote it be. Things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so it's like good luck charms and other stuff in order to kind of like bring that extra oomph for whatever you do.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very nice. It'll definitely help someone along the way for like the later for. Hmm, I guess it does kind of help them through like tough times if that's the case too.
And sometimes it's not always just sometimes yes, I use incantations, but sometimes if someone just knows that you baked them or made them something with the intention to lift their spirits or just to be there for them in their time of need, sometimes just knowing that makes the difference. Sometimes knowing that also is what makes it magical.
Mm-hmm. It's a greater form of magic.
Hmm.
Hmm. So,
Hmm.
so how often do you come across these adventures?
Oh, it varies from week to week. I feel like I see them at least 3 to 4 times a week. But during the summer, it's definitely busier because it's warm weather, and it's it's the time where people go get out more. So definitely during the summer, I meet more travelers. Not so much during the winter, but I do meet a few. But I'd say spring and summer is where I meet a lot because that's people. The it's light longer. So
Mm-hmm.
there are more people out exploring the forest, trying to discover what secrets it has, or just trying to, connect with nature more.
Mm-hmm. And have you
Mhm.
probably run into like other witches or other magic users as well?
I actually am a part of a network of other mushroom witches that I have met.
Oh, really?
We all do our mushroom magic in very different ways, but it's we are all magical in our own different ways, and it's been very lovely to meet each and every one of them. Even though we are all of the mushroom, we are not all the same, which is lovely because I guess there are different types of mushrooms out there. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess we wouldn't all be the same.
Ah, and how big is this particular network?
It's it's too big. It's a small, intimate circle, but I'm sure there are more out there that I haven't met yet. It's just I've only met a few thus far. I mean, I've also met other witches. I've met very many things. I've met magic ninja robots. I've met pandas. I've met pandas who are red. Met jellyfish, and of course, I'm meeting you. But I think it's just knowing that there are other mushroom witches out there like me that makes me very happy. Because we all just seem to be drawn to each other, which is magic in of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice little interlocking connection.
Exactly. Oh, I've even met a swamp mudman too. That was a very interesting
A
meeting.
swamp mud man?
Yes.
Wow.
His name is Burke. He plays a lot of different games. And he can be very loud, but he's also very charming too, which
Hmm.
is not exactly what I expected of a mud monster.
Well, there's always creatures from the forest that are quite surprising at times.
Yes, people always have the opportunity to surprise you.
Yep. And was there any adventure that you probably met that was initially hostile at first, but after a while kind of grown to become more accustomed to you?
See, this is the thing about the travelers that come into my domain. In some way, shape, or form, they always have to. They, for whatever reason, they are drawn to me because they need to find me. So yes, there might be initial hesitancy, but I can't truly say I've dealt with anything to like um what's the word? I, they haven't necessarily been like outright antagonistic to me. Because I mean, I understand you're meeting a strange woman wearing a mushroom cap in a forest with a frog on her head, uh, offering you tea and cookies. Yes, that I can understand that being a meeting of dubious means. I understand that very much.
Hmm.
But there's a reason you were guided to me, and eventually I realized that I am a friend. That being said, um, I think when it comes down to it, I think the most antagonistic sort of behavior I dealt with was just becoming a mushroom witch myself.
Hmm.
Because the arts that I partake in are very old. They're I guess how did they that one gentleman describe it, right? It is very old in a like very old sort of gobbledygook in a modern world. Um and so there are others that I've, studied with or encountered that they just don't see the purpose of what I do. And that can be very discouraging because you want to believe very much in your art and that you're doing the right thing and that this is your purpose in life and that this is that you're doing good in the world. But when people you've studied with and you know your own sort of kind sort of looks down on what you do, it can be very discouraging.
Hmm.
But um I've continued to do what I'd like to do because I believe in it. It's hard, but at the same time, I can't imagine doing anything else. So in that regard, though there's still a bit of disbelief or I guess cynicism, do have the respect of others of my kind because I continue to do what I do and I've never had any desire to stop doing it. So though they might not always they may not like or they may not believe that what I'm doing has a place or they may be cynical toward it. They do what is that? What did that frog apprentice say? Ah, yes. They do, and forgive me if I say this incorrectly, respect my hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about
Mhm.
right. That sounds about right. And I guess I get to kind of flip this on the much more positive side. Was there an adventurer who you felt like was down on their luck and you've managed to kind of cheer them up with your arts and other things?
That is, well, I think the first ever traveler that I encountered had that has a special place because they were, of course, the first. They were just a very sad fellow, decided to go out and commune with nature, just having a very rough time in life, just questioning, who his friends were, just feeling very alone. And of course, they somehow found their way to my cottage. And I just moved there myself and, finally got the poor frog fed. and um, so whenever I know that there's a traveler who has arrived, so there's a little bell on my door. No matter whether it's windy or not, it always rings to let me know someone is nearby. And that's when I came out to greet them and just feeling so sad, just so sad, and yet also so confused. Like, who is this living out here, and why is she wearing that hat? Which again, I understand is very understandable. So I came out and greeted them, and invited him into my cottage. Of course, he was a bit, but I put on my more charming smile and invited him in. He was very lucky. I made a lot of lemon bars and
Oh,
this very lovely lemon rose hip tea. And I
oh,
just invited him in and offered him these things, gave my offered an ear to let him vent because some people really do need to just vent.
definitely.
um and he spent a few hours with me and he just felt so much better. Played a few video games with the frog apprentice, because for some reason the frog apprentice came in with a small sort of I guess those little roll. I have no idea how that magic works. I'm gonna be honest with you. Came in with like a small sort of roly little luggage of like a small sort of I have no idea how those things work. You'd have to ask the frog how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, he just felt very happy, and he was once we sent him on his way. I mean, not everything obviously was solved, but it gave him hope, and that's the thing that I want to do as a mushroom witch. I want to give people hope, or at least give them a moment in time where they felt like they were seen by me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I guess it opens a lot of opportunities for something far more greater for this weird traveler to find a larger form of hope to carry them through.
Yes, and if it's interesting that's how it works. I mean, isn't that what somebody can say about every sort of traveler that arrives? They've lost their way, they've lost their path, not lost their way on the path, not just in the forest, but maybe also in life itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Some people just need a bit of guidance and a little bit of a moment of respite.
Indeed. I think that's something all of us need every now and again.
Yep. And just have a nice amount of tea and some treats in order to kind of set the mood too.
Indeed.
Now I really want some lemon bars. That's just me being a sweet tooth, though.
Understandable.
But I guess we can probably throw in maybe one more question, or maybe something a bit more interesting.
Hmm.
What has been the most interesting interaction with an adventure or adventurers they've come across?
Unfortunately for me, one day I was entertaining about several travelers. It was a very busy day that day. And unfortunately, as it was hot, in the midst of all of that revelry, a wasp managed to infiltrate my beautiful little cabin. And unfortunately, my poor frog apprentice had already been stung a few times that summer. And at that point, I had decided that while I generally try to be a pacifist, I had to do everything in my power to ensure no wasps did any further harm to my frog apprentice. So, what I did, unfortunately, was that I ended up what I had intended to just shoo the wasp away, uh, but I ended up actually destroying the wasp. I just killed it. I just slammed it with my broom, slammed it onto the ground. Oh, it was a horrible sight. I hadn't meant to do it, but I really didn't want the wasp to sting my poor frog apprentice. And my of course I feel embarrassed because I didn't want my guests to see me doing that, but they send they well, let's just say they found it very amusing. And
Hmm.
I guess at that point they decided to joke with me about me killing a wasp in the name of protecting my dear frog apprentice. They decided they were going to uh joke about me killing the wasp and the wasp coming back for revenge. I think one of them said something about I had to be careful because now the wasp would how did that go again? Right. Uh the wasp would we come back from the grave and do a time skip and a training arc to get their revenge.
Oh,
I, I I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that made me very, very nervous. But it was very interesting to hear that. And then there is something about suddenly I would end up in one of those light novels where I would be reincarnated as a wasp, and that was the actual title of the book.
oh
The
no.
time I was reincarnated into a wasp.
Oh no. Oh
Yes.
no. What kind of sick twisted karma is this?
And then somebody else mentioned that they had a brilliant plan to ensure that the wasp never came back. Although it's arson, and I really didn't want anybody to burn down my cottage. So,
Hmm. I mean, that's the most extreme option to go with, but
yes,
it may be necessary if you're dealing with a bunch of wasps.
yes. But so far, the cottage has been wasp free. But I'll have to keep my eye on things when summer rolls around.
Hmm. I don't want them to kind of intrude in your territory again.
Yes.
And hopefully they're not big enough to have a practical health bar either.
Indeed. Oh no. I apparently what did the frog apprentice say? If a wasp comes into cabin and then this orchestral score starts playing, we should just run away. Apparently it's called boss music. I don't understand that reference at all, but it sounds very, very uh menacing.
It is very menacing,
Oh dear.
especially when it comes to a wasp. Those
Yes.
can be very aggressive depending on whether or not you're close to a hive. And let me just say, I've had a few bouts of mine against wasps too.
Oh dear.
Sometimes they were making nests nearby my camera. Sometimes they were making nests nearby the basketball hoop.
Ooh.
Yeah, I make
Yes.
sure I have some projectile weaponry in order to at least deal with them.
Yes. Frog Apprentice says that I should see about creating an immortality potion. I don't think that's very possible. Because they seem to think that the moment my time on this earth ends, when I get to the other side, I'll have to fight the wasp.
True. It's true.
The Frog Apprentice
I'm
agrees.
Yes. um, and while there's no possible way to do that, to be quite honest, it makes me a bit afraid to die.
I mean, I guess the best thing you can do is like make some anti-venom potions, or
Yes.
maybe have some resist physical equipment.
I'm I'm sure I can make a tea for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure anything of that, or something that might actually repel the wasp from actually coming close to you. Maybe something that has like a fumigation property, something
Maybe
that's
if I
smoky.
can make it baked goods or a tea, they might reconsider their plans.
I think that might be just a temporary truce until Sunday's
Yeah.
over.
I have this idea that wasps are very headstrong characters. What did that one traveler said? Wasps are nature's equivalent to shonen manga villains. I don't know what that means, but maybe I'll ask Frog Apprentice about that later.
It makes a lot of sense when I think about it, because shonen manga villains, they are really hard to kill sometimes, especially when the author
Oh
has
dear.
other intentions.
Oh
And
dear.
on top of that, sometimes there may come a point where there's going to be a rogues gallery. So
Oh dear.
there may be more than one wasp. They may have a legion of wasps waiting for that time to kind of usurp the mortal realm.
Oh dear. Perhaps now I need a time skip in a training arc.
Yeah, I think that peaceful mushroom may soon become a Flyamantia at
Oh
some
dear.
point if you deal with wasps. Just
Uh,
saying.
well, I I think I had a good run.
Don't give up now. There's hope.
No,
You won't be alone in this fight after all. I mean, I'm gonna have to deal with
indeed.
my fair share of wasps too. Nevertheless, at least we're protecting the honeybees in this case.
Indeed.
And as long as there's a living honeybee that's able to give us the sweet nectar of the gods, known as honey,
Just like how cute and fuzzy they are.
yeah, they're just doing their darndest things.
Indeed.
But then again, now that I think about it, what if there are VTubers that are actually based on wasps? How does that work?
Well, I admit, sometimes when I really need to, uh, you know, when I really absolutely need to deal with a really traveler who's really down, I might have to break out my wasp suit. I had it made in honor of the battles between the wasp over the summer, and it's been very popular. I don't quite understand, and quite honest, I rather wear my mushroom hat, but whatever makes them happy, correct?
Yeah, though it kind of feels like something straight out of Monster Hunter. You just practically defeat enough wasps and you just turn them into armor.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, actually, no. I just simply made mine out of crochet, you know, wool and all that. But that's definitely an option.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely
I
an
think
option.
you'd have to do a lot of wasps though, unless it's like, what did Frog Apprentice say? Something about a Godzilla-sized wasp. That doesn't sound very. That doesn't. That sounds a bit frightening. But I don't, like I said, I don't know very much about these things.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
sorry.
worry about it too much. It's
Okay.
I mean, I've already dealt with that already a few times.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Oh my.
especially when it's one that can actually shoot water.
Oh dear.
Well, I think it's not really much of a wasp, more than it's like a praying mantis, but same difference. It's just
I,
giant
uh,
bugs.
I'll take your word for it.
Yep, yep. But wait a second. Hold on.
Hmm?
Wait. A frog familiar should be able to deal with like insects no problem, though, right?
You'd think so. But unfortunately, of all, Frog Apprentice eats many things, but wasps are where they draw the line. Mm, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's the venom.
Yeah, I think it might be the venom.
Yeah.
So I think you might have to maybe like find another familiar, maybe a chameleon.
It's
Maybe
a
that.
possibility, but the Frog Apprentice is a how do I? Yeah, I don't really see that happening. They're very they don't like to share the Mushroom Witch with really anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love Wah. Wah is my Frog Apprentice's name. I love them very much. So they do many other things. It just and if I can battle a wasp in their honor, I will.
Mm-hmm. All right, all right. So seems like we have finally gone with all of our questioning. So we're now going to open things up to the viewers to provide their questions as well,
Mm-hmm.
if they have any. But well, let's just get this up on the screen and just turn this so it doesn't blend in. But I guess this also kind of serves as a bit of an intermission as well. So I guess if anybody has any questions, for the most part, make sure they are highlighted, and I can also check the hashtag as well to see if anything was put in there. And let's check it out. Mm-mm. And nothing much in the tag so far. Oh, also change. There we go. So, was there a particular mushroom that you were based on? Anything that probably stood out?
Oh, the red cap mushroom, obviously, or the fly agaric, or it's also called a fly amanita because they're uh, the very red mushroom with the little white dots on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Unfortunately, the real one is poisonous. But people admire it because of how red and how cute it is.
Hmm.
I am happy to say that none of the hat that I'm wearing is not an actual mushroom. It was just made to look like one. Same thing with Waz hat too.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And have you ever thought of like having like different mushrooms for different caps as well, or maybe something?
No, I just really like this one. I once upon a time thought about shiitake or oyster, but nah, I prefer my red one more.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would wonder if you actually had a different mushroom cap as on your head, would it probably change how you do your magic, or?
No, it's just mainly for to just it's just because I like it. But I mean, I guess if I had to choose something else that's a bit different, I guess a big portobello cap would be really nice too.
Oh, hmm.
Although I prefer to eat portobello more.
Yeah, it's very nice when you kind of prep it with some nice extra virgin olive oil and maybe a bit of
Hmm.
salt and pepper on the side. Just make sure it's pan seared.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just getting a little bit too ahead of myself, but man, that sounds delicious. Oh, maybe if you kind of also stuff the portobello mushrooms too with maybe
Oh
some,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe some veggies and a little bit of maybe chicken. You know, now we're just kind of come up with some culinary stuff at this point.
I believe that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's definitely a different conversation. Lots, well, lots of baked goods and lots of culinary stuff. Hey, that might actually be
Mhm.
something might be done for the future.
Indeed.
Yeah, hey, more cooking opportunities for me. See if I can actually work my hands at something like that.
Mm.
But I guess that's how it just comes around.
Hmm.
And how big is the forest that you live in exactly?
It's as big as a traveler thinks it is. It tends to be very big because I can't really hide in a forest if it's small. Like if it's a forest preserve, it's just not going to work. But it's quite huge, miles upon miles of forest. Basically untouched. It's one of the rare places that hasn't been developed or anything like that. So they're definitely trees. It's definitely made for trees to rest unbothered and for people to walk and, you know, commune with nature or just get away from, modern technology or just the city for a bit. Um, which is odd when you consider that I live so close to a city. You'd think that it's just mainly like buildings and houses and stores and cars on streets, and but there's this place has been earmarked and untouchable for years upon years. So it
Hmm.
I'm very lucky to have been assigned in a place like this because it makes getting baked good like items to make baked goods much easier.
Hmm.
I know one mushroom witch that lives in a place where she literally has to have a order it from a grocery store, and then the grocery store has it delivered via float plane, and then they have to bring it to her that way, and it's just like, oh my goodness.
And that's a lot of
It's
extra
just
steps.
yes, yes, and I don't even want to think about the delivery fees.
Oh, that's yeah, that's gonna be a killer. Hmm. Hmm. So
Mhm.
if the forest is based on one's perception, and it could be practically as large as one would believe it to be,
Hmm.
how does someone manage to get lost in it anyway?
That's the odd part. I like to, I can't speak for people who get lost, but I'd like to think that the forest has a heart of its own, and they know when someone's in trouble, and they know that they could use help, or at least they could use a little time with me to help them with that trouble. So I guess the forest itself creates a situation where a path seems a bit longer, or maybe that turn that was there before isn't there now. It's just, oh, I think I read something about it when I was in school. I think it's from Greek mythology. It's called Tartarus. It's
Hmm.
somewhere deep in the underworld. It's always constantly changing its rooms or paths so that people who try to escape can't get out. I think maybe the forest is something that it's not like that for everybody. Just the people who need to find me.
Hmm. Okay, so there may actually be like an elder forest tree or some sort of any
Spirit,
spirit.
not an elder forest tree, a spirit, like the spirit of the forest, I guess. Just the the. It's so interesting. It's these things that every witch just knows, but finds it very difficult to explain. But it's
Hmm.
just no, maybe not the spirit of the forest, but the spirit of the magic that the forest can provide, I suppose. Like a sort of patron spirit, or like I guess with some religions they have a patron saint that is a patron over one thing. And I guess in this case, the forest spirit is a patron for those who are lost. And I don't
Hmm.
mean that in that they took one wrong turn and suddenly they don't know where they are. Just somewhere in their life they are lost. So in order to at least help them find the way, they create a situation or they move different paths or they do different things so that they'll come and find me, or that they have to. Because at least in that time before I guide them back onto, before I help them find their way, they get a bit more insight of the situation that they might be in, or they just, they're able to spend time with someone and ease their heartache and their loneliness for a little bit longer. And then I'm able to use my magic, or at least get the approval of the spirit to help them find their way home or to guide them back to where they need to go. It's a little complicated, but at the same time, it's yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely feels like a very complex thing to unpack. So, does open up a lot of potential, though, to like understand the power of nature itself. Something
I'm
so
sorry.
vast and beautiful.
I'm sorry. I just saw my frog throw an entire cup of ramen across the room. I'm just wondering what the cup of ramen did to deserve such a fate. It's such a terrible thing.
That would have been.
I have no idea, but I guess that's the nature of the frog is definitely coming out a lot more in force.
Yes. I think you're onto something about finding another familiar.
Finding another familiar is impossible. What do you want? The ants?
Ooh, ants would be nice. They can carry 14 times their weight.
Yeah, but they're an ant. It's an ant.
He does have a point. You're gonna have to have an army of them.
It is.
Well, I mean, I am in the forest. How hard could it be?
The ants here are. Are you gonna eat those dumplings? I can.
Well, yes. But yes, I think, yeah, it's just, I never question why I do the things I do. I just know that I am needed. And the travelers that come and visit me prove that every single day. I don't think they come into the forest looking to get lost or thinking, or they just wander in and take, they go in not knowing where to go, or they just go in there just thinking that, I don't think they go in there to intentionally get lost. I think they are just presented, or they're just guided to me when they think they're lost. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well,
sometimes I'm not very good with words.
Yeah, rest assured, I'm in the same position as well. We all have our moments where we just become mushmouth at that point. Just
Mushmouth.
Just pretty much fumble a word to the point where it's just speaking incoherent gibberish.
Well, I mean, I can also turn into a mushroom sometimes, but only Frog Apprentice ever really wants that. So,
I mean, that would kind of be scared to have a mushroom just kind of pop out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's kind of that's a bit odd even for me.
Yeah. But I guess this is probably a perfect time to kind of wrap things up.
Well, I see. Well, it was so lovely to talk to you.
Likewise. It's been a pleasure.
It's been the pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
No problem. So, without further ado, thank you everybody for stopping on by. Hope you had a wonderful time with our nice little interview. Do you have anything planned for the moment or any time in the future?
Well, I'm hoping to play more rhythm games or comfy games. Like I need to finish a game called Melatonin, which is basically a musical game, but it's very lo-fi beats. But otherwise, I just like spending time with my travelers. So I'm sure that we'll get into something.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Wonderful.
All right. So then, do you also have like a farewell?
I just say to every traveler who, as I send them back onto the path, that take care and be well, traveler. And if you need to come back, I am here if you need me.
All right. You take care as well, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful time, and y'all be good.
Thank you. You take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Alright, now we can check to see what we can do later on. But again, thanks for stopping on by. Hope you had a wonderful time with the stream. And I'm looking forward to doing some more Lobotomy Corporation tomorrow. Hope everybody enjoyed the stream, and yeah, we'll see who we can send y'all to afterwards. In the meantime, I'm going to send y'all to Risuri, who is having a virtual concert going on at the moment, so do cheer on and enjoy the tunes and jams. So always sing your little heart out.